In my deconstruction journey, I have found this paradox that in the very attempts to erase truth, truth finds refuge for its inevitable survival. Truth, what I have found is that truth has a pattern. When truth speaks to power, it obviously becomes a threat, and it goes underground waiting for the right soil, the right ears, and the right time. If you're deconstructing from religion, coming into a spiritual awakening, or grappling with the loss and disorientation of uncovering hidden truths, this one's for you. So our journeys are not about losing faith, but about finding what's real. We're not breaking away from tradition. We're listening to what it was trying to say before it was tamed. You've been called, I've been called to excavate truth. Because let's be honest, if it was sitting on the surface, you probably wouldn't be interested anyways. I'm Jennifer, and this is the Bailey Moore podcast, where we trace the patterns of truth, the way it buries itself, protects itself, and always finds a way back. Let's get started. So this pattern that I want to talk to you about today, I began to see it when I was studying Hellenistic ancient astrology and reading this big old textbook by the one and only Chris Brennan. And he begins describing what happened when Constantine institutionalized Christianity in 313 AD. When Christianity became a tool of the Roman Empire, astrology was pushed out, not because it wasn't necessarily true, but because it was a threat to this new system of control. But astrology didn't die. It traveled, it hid, it went underground, it dispersed from the Roman Empire, but it moved through Persia and Turkey and India and Egypt. And as it was transmitted through these different cultures, it absorbed the wisdom and the symbolism of each host culture. And ironically, the very attempt to erase it, to erase the wisdom, helped refine it, preserve it, and carry it further. So I can read about astrology even today. This was my first glimpse of this pattern, that going underground doesn't mean that this is a grave. It just might be a greenhouse. And seeing that piece of it and having that reframe really did something for me, because it is extremely disheartening to hear how people were burned, books were burned, beliefs were intentionally erased, not just debated, but eradicated so that no one could ever read them or learn them or understand them. And here I am, centuries later, reading about astrology. Here you are listening to me talk about it. The very attempt to erase it actually helps refine it, protect it, and carry it forward. That was my first spark of, wait a minute, maybe this pattern of truth going underground isn't just a tragedy, maybe it's also protection. So fast forwarding to my deconstructing Christianity, I made a TikTok a couple of weeks ago where I said, even though I'm deconstructing, I'm still churchy. There's still a part of me that'll be like, hallelujah. Preach, come on. And those things sometimes mean something very different to me, but there is a lived, embodied something that didn't just vanish because my relationship with the doctrine, my understanding of doctrines changed. The other part of this is I live at the intersection of being Black and being raised in church culture. So a huge part of my deconstructing journey is looking at the kind of Christianity that was given to enslaved people, how it was weaponized as a mechanism of control and domination, and a tool to make a human spirit submit to another human spirit. And at the same time, enslaved people had to survive, and their truth had to survive. So you've got this forced religion that doesn't look like you, doesn't account for you, and is obviously being used to manipulate you. What did our ancestors do? They learned how to take just enough of the system to look compliant to the oppressor, because we got to survive out here in these streets, while still encoding their own truths underneath. We'll call this one thing over here for you, but for us, it means something different. We still see this today in a lot of like Black language, if you will, where good means bad, this means that, keep going means stop. We still have a lot of that in our culture because it mandates that there be a true relationship to communicate with us. So we might be using the slave Bible that you gave us, but we're singing our own songs. We're holding our own rhythms. We're speaking power to each other in ways that don't look threatening out loud, but are deeply threatening spiritually. Come on, somebody. So when I think about the Black church and the white church, and I see how the Black church is infused with what people just call Black culture, like call and response, the shouting, the dancing, the humming, the tongues, the rock, the sway, the soul. And I wonder, like just kind of coming full circle to some of these things, it makes me wonder, what if those are not just emotional expressions? What if they're whispers of embodied truth that survived inside the container of a doctrine that did not love us, where theology says one thing, but the hum says something else, where the doctrine or the teaching says one thing, but the dance and the shout and the rhythm in our bodies is saying, no, there's something else. There's something truer than this. And at some point, freedom rings enough for us now to be able to say, I can throw off the doctrines that sought to oppress me, that sought to oppress us. But I'm not going to assume that there was no truth in what my body kept, what my people kept. That's the excavation that I'm talking about. What do you want to throw away? Of this mining, of looking into different things and having a spiritual awakening and throwing away, quote unquote, religion, what do I want to throw away? And what do I want to keep? And where is their truth hiding in what survived in me? So I'm sitting with this pattern and I go into research mode like I do. And I asked my chatbot what this thing that I'm describing of something being embedded, like a language, like a secret language being embedded in another language because it can't just be out in the open. What might that be called? And one of the phrases that it offered was tacit knowledge. So tacit knowledge basically means this, that the rules and principles of something are neither obvious to the observer, nor even fully conscious to the person that's practicing it. So just in taking a look at, when I looked up the word tacit, it means unspoken, noiseless, wordless, saying nothing, silent. It's silently indicated or implied. So this immediately makes me think of our ancestors, right? Like having to speak without speaking. How to convey power and hope and resistance without saying it out loud. Silently empowering each other under a system designed to punish empowerment, including in the religion itself, in the practice, in church, on Sunday morning. There is this embodied, it's truth that lives in the body, in the song, in the gesture, even when it can't safely live in the English language. That is embodied knowing, a spiritual memory that outlived the theology wrapped around it. And this is where something surprising happened in my own process. I started developing a reverence for certain church rituals and traditions that I thought I was letting go of. Not because of the doctrine, not because of the theology, And definitely not because of white Jesus dying on the cross to save me, but because when I look beyond the sacrificial narrative, beyond the punishment, look beyond the fear, look beyond the substitution story, there is something older in those rituals, something deeper, something that feels like an inheritance. The call and the response, the hum, the dancing, the collective singing and harmonizing of our voices, the way the room swells, the way our bodies move as one. If I pay attention, I can feel that these things were carrying truths far older than the doctrines that were overlaid on top of them. It's like the ritual survived even when the story was distorted. The sound survived even when the theology was being weaponized. The body has remembered something the mind was not allowed to name. And when I sit with that, I'm sitting with the idea that these expressions were not gifts of the church. They were gifts we carried into the church. Things our people preserved under pressure, in plain sight, under someone else's religion. And so these become an invitation to reconnect with what was being passed down underneath the doctrine. It's an invitation to remember what our bodies knew before theology, what our ancestors preserved beneath the hymns, and what truth was kept alive inside of the ritual, like in the very middle, in the dead center. Even when the narrative on top was to eradicate it. And all of this, the tacit knowledge, the haunting persistence of truth, the embodied memory, it helps me understand why I can leave a belief system but still feel touched by the ritual. Because the ritual wasn't theirs. It was ours. It belonged to us all the entire time. So speaking of hauntology, that was another concept that I learned about. Another concept that came up in my research is this concept called hauntology, which is a term by Jacques Derrida, and it describes how past ideas, realities, or truths haunt the present, persisting even when they've been suppressed or hidden. And it makes me come to this moment of like reckoning. I love that image for truth. And I love that image for truth, especially for myself, for women, for marginalized people, for Black people. Like there is this, we all kind of know that there's this almost exodus from organized religion because of the oppressive nature that has been embedded in it. And this hauntology, like the language of that is like, there was always a ticking time bomb embedded in there. Like it was almost like, what's it called? Trojan horse. Like there was always something in there saying, you just wait. I'm just waiting for the right moment, the right time, the right people, the right whatever for that to come about, to be able to fully or more so express the truth that's been hidden. Truth as a haunting. Truth as a haunting. Truth as a haunting. So you can burn the books. You can kill the bodies. You can outlaw the practices. You can try to destroy it all. But truth still lingers. So while there's a feeling of like there's something that has been lost, there's also like nothing has been lost. So this brings me back to deconstruction, and I recently learned that in philosophy, deconstruction isn't essentially about tearing things down. And what I found interesting too was that while I was looking up these words around tacit knowledge and hauntology, right up in here is this concept of hauntology being derived from deconstruction. It's like a practice, or in philosophy, it's an approach by Jacques Derrida. So deconstruction is a way of understanding that a text, whether it's a scripture, a belief system, a doctrine, a tradition, doesn't just mean what it says on the surface. Dun, dun, dun. It is also shaped by what's unsaid, the assumptions behind it, the context, the oppositions, and the histories inside the language. Meaning is never just present and simple. It's layered, it's relational, it's contextual. And I find that beautiful because to me, that's what we're actually doing when we say we're deconstructing, when we say we are looking at hidden truths, when we are reclaiming spiritual truths. We're not just trying to burn the house down, though might not be opposed. We're walking through every room asking, who built this? What does this arrangement serve? Who's hiding in that wall? What's hiding over there? What are the stories that never made it into the sermons? There's an excavation happening. There's a questioning happening. And here is the tricky part, and one of the main reasons why I even recorded this whole thing. Power structures don't just want to control what you believe. They also want to control what your leaving looks like. It wants to define even what that is. So even if you don't subscribe to a doctrine anymore, or a religion, or a political party, or a scientific structure, whatever, the system will still try to describe you through its lens. Oh, they're just tearing down beliefs. They're leaving the church. They're leaving God. They're worshiping the devil. They're becoming atheist. They just want room to just sin and just reframe things as trauma. Even the word deconstruction, while I don't necessarily have a problem with it, I am very aware that there will always be attempts to define what's happening in my journey, in your journey, in our journeys, using language that serves the old power structure, the dying power structure. And what happens with that is, as we start gathering around that word, around that as a process and a part of our journey and even an identity, there suddenly becomes a little mini dogma born out of the other old dogma of what this is supposed to be and what results you're supposed to come to and what conclusions you're supposed to come to. There becomes another system in response to the system that wants to tell you what you are now and how you're supposed to move with this now. And you have to let all of this go then. If you leave the church, you got to leave the doctrines. And one of my deepest commitments in this season of my life is I don't want to get caught up in another dogma, even a cute, progressive, healing sounding one. I want to stay in a relaxed state of curiosity, openness, non-judgment, and suspension of certainty, trusting my discernment and intuition as I move. Because that is what was missing. A trust or ability to trust in my own understanding and thinking. So part of this work is defining for yourself what deconstruction is and is not for you. And it doesn't need to look like anything that anybody else does, because language and systems will always try to name and define you again. And people, when I say language and when I say power structures and systems and all that, a lot of times it's people. Like, it's a lived out system that we tend to do because we want to know, we want to have a sense of certainty. We want to know what box to put people in. And so there's almost like I need to define you in the context of how I think. And even in your freedom, there will be this pull to fit you back into a category. And your job, my offer to you, is that you can say, cool, you can call it what you want. But what I know this is for me is this. And that's sovereignty. And that's how you stay in sovereignty even as you deconstruct. And I think one of my rebel with a cause moments is saying, you know what? I might keep the tongues. I might keep the prayers. I might keep this is full disclosure, just so that you can't put me in a box. It's going to be so hodgepodge and eclectic that you're not going to be able to say that I do anything. I'm just having a moment of clarity in this moment of like, oh, I know why I keep, like, you're not going to pin me down, okay? This brings us back full circle of asking or thinking about if truth has a way of protecting itself, if it can't ever truly be erased, what does that then say about us? The people that carry it, the people that search for it, the people that inquire about what it is and where it is. And when I sat with that question, it was a little emotional because I think it brought up for me another doctrine. So much of what I was taught in church was about defending the truth, protecting it, needing to fight for it, needing to keep it alive and keep it going. Don't let the fire quench. And if we don't stand for truth, it'll disappear. And we have to defend the gospel so that God doesn't lose ground. And all of this, that was just propaganda to conquer other people. That's what that is. But truth has its own survival mechanism. It keeps showing up and resurfacing across time, culture, people, language. And I don't have to attempt to be the protector of all truth. Truth doesn't need me to rescue it. In fact, I'm the one being rescued. Truth is finding me in that way. So my assignment is to no longer I have to safeguard truth like a security system and be vigilant and all of this. My assignment then becomes to just honor the truth that I find, to relax into the reality that I'm a part of a bigger cycle, to see myself as one point in a long pattern of truth resurfacing. And what that brings me to, what comes up for me when I say that is truth is objective, not because it's flat and linear and all of that. Truth is objective because it can't be erased. It stands, it survives, it haunts, it returns. That's what makes it objective. And I think sometimes we're after the search for the objective truth and we need to know the thing that's what truth is. Truth is objective in that way. And our perceptions and experiences of it are subjective, which is totally fine. There's so much room for that, and we can honor that. And when we honor that, what we say is, this is how truth is moving through me right now. I don't have to go defend the bottom line truth. I can just allow how it's moving through me right now without pretending that I know and we own the whole thing. So I want to leave you with this. Maybe we are a part of truth's survival mechanism. Maybe the ache, the unraveling, the questions aren't evidence of a failure, but proof that truth is moving through us again, looking for a new language and new. And maybe truth doesn't choose the powerful. Maybe it chooses the available, those willing to hold tension instead of certainty, those brave enough to feel the loss that comes before remembering, those who will not let fear translate the sacred for them anymore. Because the real work of deconstruction isn't about what we tear down. It's about what we're trusted to make space for. So if you find yourself questioning everything again, know that you're not breaking faith. That's what they say. But you're making space. You and I are the ground truth has chosen to grow through. You've been called to excavate it, and it's excavating you. I'm Jennifer. This is the Bailey Moore Podcast, where we trace the patterns of truth, honor the wisdom that survived in silence, and remember what it means to become the living ground. Signing off. Until next time.